Kidding. I love you guys too. But all of y'all back there. But we'll pass it on. But again, don't take one if you don't feel like you need one. And my children, my family, some of y'all may remember, it's been about 13 years ago, more or less. We have a niece that suffers from cystic fibrosis. And we took her, my sister was working at Driscoll Children's Hospital in Corpus at the time. And we took her over there because she wasn't getting the care that she needed. And life has just been phenomenal for her ever since. And they didn't expect her to live into her 20s based on the care that she was receiving, and a number of the people that she has been in contact with in Mexico are no longer with us. But she is now going to be 25 on the 30th, Wednesday, I guess. And she is going to have a baby. And they never dreamed that she was going to have a child. So they are having a gender reveal in McAllen today. And so my wife's family, a bunch of them have come up from all over the place, and they're all staying in my house. No, there's a few of them staying in our house. But so we have some at our house. My father-in-law is with us, and some others. And so my wife's family prefers to worship in Spanish. And so they're at a Spanish congregation in Brownsville this morning, which is way better than me trying to speak Spanish and preach in Spanish this morning. So that's why they're not here with us. But we're so thankful for Arlette and just the way that God has worked in her life and in the lives of people around her. And there's some really good people in this world. And so we're very blessed with that. I also now would like to confess something. I was not happy with my sermon last week at all. And so I kind of reevaluated the educator part of me. One thing I need to realize, and hopefully y'all can hold me accountable for this, is when I'm not a preacher, but I feel like I was an educator. And as an educator, your objective is the main thing that you need to get across. And sometimes, and you use your content and you use your presentation in order to get to your objective. And I think last week, at least, I was focused more on content, not on objective and presentation. And when I went home last Sunday afternoon, I was like, man, that was not good. So I'm going to tell you this. Part of it was because I was been fascinated with different women from the Bible. And some of you, if you know who this young lady is, pat yourself on the back. Because prior to this week, I did not know who she was. But I try to tell my girls stories when we're traveling and before we go to bed, and I tell them Bible stories. And I've told them so many stories, they know everything. So I've got to rack my brain to try to think of things that they don't think of. And this is a young lady, I didn't know her name, but I knew what she had done. And I wanted to tell them this story. So that's why I'm going to mention her in just a little bit. But my confession part is I need to focus on my objective of my sermon and not necessarily on the content, if that makes sense. And some of y'all who are teachers are smiling and laughing at me and sticking your tongue out and all those things. But I need to refocus. I have one more young lady that I would like to talk about. We're not going to be here next week. That doesn't mean you get a week off and you can just skip and go to the beach all day. My father is actually going to come and preach, and if he tells you any stories about me growing up, they're all false. I can attest to that. My mother will tell you the truth. So, but yes, we will be out of town. We will actually be in the New Braunfels, San Antonio area. So yes, we'll be over there, and so we'll be in that area for about a week or so. And I totally lost where I was at. But I have one more individual I want us to talk about, and I think that may be my next slide here. But if you think of somebody, if there's a female that you know from the Bible that we haven't talked about, that you would like for us to talk about? My 8-year-old is still dead set on being a princess when she grows up. And so she wants me to talk about Queen Esther all the time. But we've talked about Queen Esther. But I want us to, if you can think of somebody, let me know before we move on to another topic or another series of lessons. But this morning, if you're taking notes, what's underlined is on your paper there. It says this morning we're going to look at a relatively unknown individual, but I am convinced that her actions played a huge role in fulfilling God's plan of salvation. And I'm going to put a plug for this website. This is not on your little note paper, but it's called Bible Speak. And if you don't know how to pronounce a name in the Bible, which is half the time, that's me, then you go to this website and you click on the letter, or you can do a search and you can type in the name and they will pronounce the name correctly for you. I tried, so I'm going to try to pronounce a lot of names in today's sermon correctly. If I mess them up, I'm sorry. I'll apologize in advance. But the individual we're going to be looking at, if you have your Bibles, you're welcome to turn to here, is only found here in 2 Chronicles 11, and I believe it's 2 Chronicles 22 and 2 Chronicles 11, and she's only mentioned in a couple of verses. Well, the first few verses, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background as to what's taking place. I'm going to read a number of verses, I think through verse 17, and then I am going to give you a recap, because there's a lot of names here, and I don't want anybody to get confused about what's going on. 2 Chronicles 22, verses 1 through 6. It says, Then the people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, Jehoram's youngest son, their next king. Don't worry about trying to remember names here. If you want to, you can, but don't worry about it. Since the marauding bands who had come from the Arabs had killed all of their older sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, reigned as king of Judah. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother was Athaliah, granddaughter of King Omri. Ahaziah also followed the evil example of King Ahab's family, and I find this fascinating, for his mother encouraged him in doing wrong. That just blows my mind. Verse 4. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Ahab's family had done. They even became his advisors after the death of his father, and they led him to ruin. Following their evil advice, Ahaziah joined Jehoram, the son of King Ahab of Israel, in his war against King Hazael of Aram of Ramoth Gilead. When the Arameans wounded Jehoram in the battle, he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds he had received at Ramoth. I know there's a lot of names here, but I'll explain this better in a second. Because Jehoram was wounded, King Ahaziah of Judah went to Jezreel to visit him. But God had decided that this visit would be Ahaziah's downfall. While he was there, Ahaziah went out with Jehoram to meet Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, whom the Lord had appointed to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. While Jehu was executing judgment against the family of Ahab, he happened to meet some of Judah's officials and Ahaziah's relatives who were traveling with Ahaziah. So Jehu killed them all. Then Jehu's men searched for Ahaziah, and they found him hiding in the city of Samaria. They brought him to Jehu, who killed him. Ahaziah was given a decent burial because the people said he was the grandson of Jehoshaphat, a man who sought the Lord with all of his heart. But none of the surviving members of Ahaziah's family were capable of ruling the kingdom. If you're asleep, you can wake up now, because this is the part I want us to get to. Verses 10 through 12. When Athaliah, the mother of King Ahaziah of Judah, learned that her son was dead, she began to destroy the rest of Judah's royal family. And I underlined the word "but." Because sometimes if you've heard what I've talked about in the first 9 verses, there's a lot of killing. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of people who are dying. And if you're looking at this point in history of the nation of Israel and the nation of Judah, you may look at it and you say, oh my goodness, things are horrible. Things are falling apart. life is going in such a bad direction. But in verse 11, there's the little word, but. And I underline that because sometimes when we think life is just going horrible and life is falling apart, and it may be in our personal lives, it may be in our country, it may be in our city, it may be in our families. I don't know. It doesn't matter where it is. God is always there. And God is always in control. And when everything looks like things are going horrible, there's a but. But Ahaziah's sister, Ahaziah was the king, his half-sister, Jehosheba, the daughter of the king, so she's a princess, took Ahaziah's infant son, Joash, stole him away from among the rest of the king's children who were about to be killed. And she put Joash and his nurse in a bedroom. And in this way, Jehosheba, wife of Jehodiah the priest, the sister of Ahaziah, hid the child so that Athaliah could not murder him. Joash, the little baby, remained hidden in the temple for 6 years while Athaliah ruled over the land. Skipping down to 2 Chronicles 23:1, it says, in the 7th year of Athaliah's reign, Jehodiah the priest decided to act. He summoned his courage and he made a pact with the 5 army commanders, and he makes Joash king. 24 verse 1 says, Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap because I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. There's a gentleman by the name of Jehu who God has said, the house of Ahab, you may have heard of Ahab and Jezebel and how evil they were. Elijah and Elisha have conflict with these guys earlier in the chapters. And God says, you know what, enough is enough. So he tells Jehu, I want you to go and get rid of everybody from the house of Ahab. Kill all of the people from Israel. Not the people, but the religious, the political leaders. While he's doing that, he ends up killing Azariah also. And then his mother becomes queen. And again, I find this so fascinating because once she realizes that her son is dead, she decides that she is going to kill everybody in her own family. She starts killing her own grandchildren. Mostly, probably, only the males. And probably there were a number of them because she misses one. So when I was looking at different commentators, they say that Azariah might have had up to 20 different kids. And as she's going through the palace, essentially, with whoever they are following her, maybe soldiers, whoever it is, anytime she sees a baby, anytime she sees a child, she's killing them. She's putting them to death. And she's in control because she wants to be the queen. Well, Jehosheba realizes what's happening. And she grabs her nephew, Joash. I am really good at putting Bodie to sleep. Is Bodie asleep right now? Janessa calls me at 2 or 3 in the morning. Says, can you just talk to Joe? So there's a little baby back here. He is about 1 year old. That's how, almost, right? Getting close? That's about how old this baby is. And she sees what the queen is doing and how she's killing all of these babies, and she grabs the little boy. He's the perfect child, next to mine, of course. But he still makes noise. He's not quiet all the time. She's putting her life in danger by grabbing a 1-year-old while there's chaos going on around, all in the palace, and she takes him and she hides him in a bedroom because she doesn't want him to die. Eventually, after everything calms down, Her husband is the high priest. She takes the baby boy to the temple, and they care for him for 6 years. Oliver, how old are you, buddy? Are you 6? 7? You're 7.
I'm about to be 8.
Whoa, you're moving up in this world. Would you like to be king of a country? Yeah? You might do better than some of the ones we got. But anyway, no comment. I'm not going to politics. So anyway, she saves the sole surviving heir. He's hidden in the temple for 6 years. And I just, when I think about this, I think of you, Oliver. Just your energy, your joy, you're moving around. How do you keep a child, especially a boy, for 6 years in the temple without people finding out? Well, this evil queen, as she rules during these 6 years, probably never goes to the temple because she's not following God. And Joash grows up. And when he turns 7 years old, the high priest says, you know what? It's time to bring him out. And he brings him out, and he puts him in front of everybody. He has a whole elaborate plan, and we're not going to talk about the plan. But we know that he is the rightful king of Judah. And after this evil lady is horrible, and the country goes into despair for 6 years because she is so demented. And then Joash becomes king. And Jehosheba, because of what she does, she preserves the sacred lineage of Jesus as a descendant of David. Because David was promised that he would always have a king on the throne. And that throne goes all the way to Jesus. But every single one of the male descendants in David's family has been killed except for Joash. And he was saved because of Jehosheba. Because of her courage and her willingness to step up and do the right thing. And so I want us to look at a few things that we can learn from her. We don't have not too long this morning. But my first takeaway is this. Oftentimes, availability is more important to God than ability. You may not have, I don't have the talent to sing. That's why I sit on the front row. So nobody has to hear it. Nancy's shaking her head, yes. Are you talking about me? Or okay, you're like, oh, great. I don't have that ability. I can try, I can do the best I can, but I don't have that talent. We all have talents and abilities in different areas. And I would be willing to bet that Jehosheba didn't have really any special talents or abilities. If you go online and you do a Google search for it, there's little cartoons. She is like the most beautiful person in the whole world. I'm not sure that's the way she looked, but that's the way she's depicted in all the cartoons. Because I showed my kids the cartoon. But anyway, I don't think she has any special talents or abilities. But she was at the right place, at the right time, and she acted upon what she knew was right. I don't know what your talents or abilities are. I don't know what God has blessed you with. I know that everybody has some sort of talent or ability. I also know that there are some people who are more talented than others in certain areas. But I would say this. Just be a Christian. Just be available. Just be ready to serve. You don't know what's going to come up. But be at the right place. And right now, Sunday morning, this is the right place. This is where you should be. And I don't want to call out, or whether you're from Abilene, or whether you're from Arkansas, or wherever else y'all don't really visit, but San Antonio. You guys don't know how much it encourages us to have people who take time out of their vacation to come and worship with us. And even if they don't bring food, if you bring Chick-fil-A, that's a plus. But that's encouraging to us who are here all the time. And I can imagine that those of us who are here all the time, or that are here, when visitors come in and they see other Christians, and you smile, and you talk, and you share, you're doing what God wants you to do. That is just being available. That's being there. And you may get asked to lead a prayer out of the blue, and you didn't even know you were going to lead a prayer. But being at the right place at the right time, and if you're there, God's going to use you. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter what your talents are. God's going to find a way to put you where you need to be as long as you're available and ready to serve. My takeaway number 2 is do what's right, regardless of what is going on around you. I cannot imagine the chaos that would have been taking place in the palace at that time when essentially there is a coup taking place. And you don't know whose side is on who. You don't know who to trust. You don't know who's killing who. You don't know what's happening. But Jehosheba steps up. And I wonder what motivated her to do that. Was that her special nephew? Did she just love that kid so much that she wanted to save his life? Maybe. We don't know. Maybe she knew that he was the last descendant and she wanted to keep the lineage of David alive, or she wanted her brother's son to be the next king, and maybe she did it out of love for her brother or love for her family, but she takes it. Or maybe she just had compassion, and I don't know why your screen and my screen don't match. Maybe she just had compassion and she sees all of these kids being killed and she says, this is wrong. I'm not going to stand idly by while all of these things are taking place. And she saves his life. Whatever her motivation was, I would be willing to bet that it was out of love. For the baby, for her family, for God, for just morals and ethics. I don't know. But sometimes people will say, we need to have a spirit-filled church. I don't know how you define spirit-filled church. But when I look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 12, 13, and 14, and when I see what it talks about the gifts of the Spirit, because some people say a spirit-filled church is where the people are speaking in tongues. And they say, well, there's people who are prophesying, or there's people who are having the ability to heal, or there's all kinds of different things that are going on in a spirit-filled church. Well, when you look at 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, it talks about all of those gifts of the Holy Spirit. But 1 Corinthians 13, 13 says, but the greatest of these, of all of those gifts, you know what the greatest one is? It's love. In Galatians 5:22, when Paul starts listing out the fruits of the Spirit, how do we know we have the Spirit of God living in us? You know what the number one Spirit is? The fruit is? It's love. In John 13:35, Jesus says, they will all know that you're my disciples if you have love for one another. If we're going to be a spirit-filled church, if we're going to do the right thing at the right time, we have to have love for other people. We have to care about other people. We have to think about the needs of other people. Because the way we know we have the Spirit of God or the Holy Spirit living within us is by the way that we're going to treat other people. And that means we're going to do the right thing, regardless of what's going on around us. Takeaway number 3. God works through small acts. We have no idea how one small action on our part can change the course of somebody else's life. Jehosheba preserved the lineage of Jesus Christ. Did she know what she was doing? Did she understand what she was doing? I don't know. Or did she do the right thing because she loved the little child, or she had a heart of love and she saved his life? Whatever it was, she was an instrument used by God to fulfill God's plan. Maybe she didn't know what she was doing, but God used her. And I will tell you that if you're at the right place at the right time and you have a heart of love for other people, God can use you too in His plan to fulfill His plan some way, somehow. And we don't even know what it's going to be. We don't know how it's all going to play out. But just when somebody comes in to our worship services and we're here and we smile and we say hi and we talk to them, that makes a huge difference in people's lives. It makes people feel welcome to be at church. But you know what? We don't act like Christians only when we're at church. I would encourage you to do the little things. I have a list of things up here. I'm not going to go into all of them. But my thought goes to the little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. When his mom is packing, if you remember the story of feeding the 5,000, and Jesus takes these 5 loaves and these 2 fish and He feeds 5,000 men. We don't even know how many people were. 15,000 total people. I don't think when that little boy got up in the morning and he said, Mom, can you fix me a lunch? That he said, can you give me an extra loaf? I'm going to be feeding 5,000 today. I don't think that crossed his mind. But when the apostles asked, is there any food? And this little boy walks up with 5 loaves and 2 fish. They didn't laugh at him. They didn't say, oh, come on, kid, what are we going to do with this? No, give it to us. That little bit, Jesus was able to feed so many people. Luke 16:10 says, if you're faithful in little things, you're going to be faithful in larger things. And then Luke's account of the parable of the talents. He says, you're a good servant. You've been faithful with the little I entrusted you. So now you're going to be governor of 10 cities as your reward. If you don't think you're talented, if you don't think you have abilities, if you don't think you can do anything in the service of God, you're wrong. Because you can do the little things. And I would say one of the littlest things and easiest things you can do is pray. Pray for the people in our bulletin. Pray for other Christians. Pray for people who are in need. And I promise you, God is going to act. Because our small actions have huge impacts. And finally, God's plan is always going to prevail. I'll put all of these verses up there. Isaiah 46:10, the last part. God says, my purpose will stand and I will do all that I please. And not in a selfish way, but God knows what's right and what's best. And sometimes in Proverbs 19:21, sometimes we have plans and oh, I'm going to do this and I want to do that and I want to do all of these different types of things. And sometimes we make poor decisions. But guess what? God's still in control. It doesn't matter what poor decisions you've made in the past. What matters is the decisions that you're going to make in the future. Back when I was in high school, I think I mentioned this before, I tried to play football. And I played a position that was called a rover, what we did. And my coach, loved him to death. Huge impact on my life, Coach Harris. Would say sometimes I would make a decision to come up to stop the run, and sometimes I would make a decision to go back and stop the pass. And he said, you know what? Make a decision and do it. Don't stand in limbo. Don't stand doing nothing. Don't stand, he would call it no man's land. Make a decision and then make it the right decision. Put forth your efforts and forget what you've done in the past. Don't dwell on what's happened, but dwell on what you can do. Dwell on what God can do, because God's plan is going to work. The last part of Isaiah 14:21, God says, so it will happen. Even if you make the wrong decision, God's plan is still going to work. When the Jews thought by killing Jesus that they had ended this uprising, God said, you can try all you want. You're not going to stop my plan. And because of Jesus Christ, because Jehosheba saved Joash's life, God's plan of redemption and God's plan of salvation was able to carry through all the way to Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ came and He lived on this earth. He went through what we went through, but without sin. And then instead of us being crucified because of our sins, because of what we've done, Jesus stood on the cross and said, I'm going to bear their punishment for them. And we have an opportunity at salvation. If there's anything we can do as a congregation, as people, hopefully, who love each other, who care about each other, who want what's best for each other, our whole purpose is for all of us to get to heaven some way, somehow. And if we can help you on that, if you need help dealing with sin in your life, don't wait till you've done it yourself. Get help from somebody. If you need to be baptized and put on Christ in baptism, or be rebaptized and put on Christ in baptism, you can do that this morning. If you've been a child of God and you know you haven't been making the decisions that you need to be making, or you've made mistakes, you're welcome to come forward and we'll pray for you and we'll help you on that journey. But I also want to say this is not the only time. We're here, all of us are here together to help each other out as we get through life. And if there's anything we can do as a congregation to help you in that path, please come forward while Rusty leads us in song.